What is up, guys? It's Doodoo Poker here, back for another video. Today we are going to be reviewing Two Card Confidence's Preflop Xploits course. The course is broken down into 4 modules: the introduction, the GTO, the population analysis, which is my favorite, and the extreme player profile. There's a total runtime of 8 hours and 43 minutes, and any course that I review will be recommended by default. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of this course. The course starts off by reviewing a common spot where the button RFIs and the big blind 3-bets. Now we're going to look at GTO ranges side by side next to population ranges. This course is only for regulars and it is for 500 NL stakes, so all of the data is for 500 NL regulars. But let's go look at this spot. So we RFI, let's go to GTO Wizard. We RFI on the button. The small blind folds and the big blind calls. Now we know the big blind is supposed to 3-bet 14.2%. But what is the actual percentage? Well, let's go back to notes, and the sims are slightly different. So we're going to go off his sims and not the GTO Wizard sims. But I like to compare just to see. Now, the population, we already know 3-bets less overall. In his sims, they're less than 12% in the big blind 3-bet versus a button RFI, but they're using different sizings. And GTO is over 13% in his sims. Now, the range composition is different, but I want to show you exactly what the range for GTO is in his sims and also the MDA. I want to show you the exact differences. So here we see the population versus GTO. Now, the GTO range is on the right, and the population big blind 3-bet range versus a button 2.5x RFI is on the left. What do you guys notice about the ranges? Well, we know population 3-bets less than GTO, but the range composition is different. Look at a hand like pocket 9s and pocket 8s. They are higher frequency 3-betting these hands than GTO, but they don't have hands like ace-5 off, like jack-5 suited. These hands do not really exist in a population 3-bet range, but they do exist in a GTO range. So what we see is that people play more linear than they should. They're playing more linear. They're 3-betting 9s, they're 3-betting 8s more than GTO, but they're not using hands like ace-5 off or jack-5 suited. Now, how do we exploit this range? How do we adjust? The button adjustment is the following. I'm going to show you the slideshow, but let's first go over the notes. The button adjustment is this. You need to be calling much less overall. You need to be 4-betting more than GTO. That's important to understand. And you need to be folding more. So let's go take a look. We'll take a look at the button MDA response versus a big blind 3-bet. Now, what is noticed here? Look at a hand like ace-jack offsuit. In GTO, ace-jack off will fold a little bit, will mostly call, and then will 4-bet, 20% or so. But versus the MDA response, we need to be basically pure 4-betting ace-jack off. Okay, so you want to be 4-betting these offsuit hands, like the ace-jack off, and hands that basically block the top of range, but you also want to be folding more. Look, in GTO, we're going to pure call a hand like king-9 suited, but the MDA shows us that we should be folding a bit. Now, even hands like ace-4 suited, look at ace-4 suited. Ace-4 suited will jam. I just want to compare this with GTO Wizard too. So ace-4 suited will, well, we don't have jam here, but I know ace-4 suited does jam because this is simple. Let's go to general. Yeah, ace-4 suited does jam, right? Ace-4 suited 4-bet jams versus a big blind 3-bet. And this also aligns with this as well. But you never want to do this in practice because the range is too strong. Yes, we 4-bet more with ace-jack because we block aces and jacks, but ace-4 does not block enough of the hands, so we mostly fold it and sometimes call. Now, a couple big deviations, but let's go back to notes. So a hand like ace-jack off will be called, folded, and 4-bet in GTO. We want to pure 4-bet it versus a big blind 3-bet when we are in the button, or on the button. So I'm going to skip to the best part of this course, which is Module 3, Population Analysis for Specific Formations. Here we learn how to play exact pre-flop ranges versus the population. Now, remember, there's a hierarchy of pre-flop ranges. GTO will always be number 3, population pre-flop will be 2, and then individual pre-flop based on exact opponents will be number 1. Let's look at cutoff versus button 3-bet formation. This is going to be, how do we play cutoff versus a button 3-bet? What is the deviation? What is GTO? And how can we maximally exploit our opponents? This is for the 500 NL population, regulars only. Now, what do we notice? We notice that population is more aggressive than theory. Let's go to GTO Wizard very quickly. Now, if we RFI and the button 3-bets us, what does the button have in theory? The button has a calling range, right? Most people do not have this calling range. They do not have the 67 combos. What they do is they play a 3-bet or fold strategy. They move these hands into this bucket. That means they 3-bet more than GTO. So we want to look at the button 3-bet range. We know that they 3-bet more than theory. Most people do not know this, but yes, at 500 NL, the button 3-bets more than they should because they do not have calls or as many calls as theory. Now let's look at what we should do and also the percentages. Now in a GTO land, the button is 3-betting 11.8%. Population 3-bets 13.1% of the time. Again, there's no PDF for this, so we had to screenshot the pre-flop ranges. But how do we exploit this pre-flop tendency? We need to be calling more and 4-betting more. 2 huge exploits. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the cutoff MDA response versus a button 3-bet. What we see here is this. You want to fold a bit less to the 3-bet because remember, they 3-bet more than theory, but we also want to 4-bet more. So hands like ace queen off need to be pure 4-bets, and we call much more of the suited hands. A hand like king jack suited, king 10 suited, king 9 suited. I also want to go to GTO Wizard 2 as well, just to compare. So these hands like king jack, king 10, king 9, see, notice how ace queen is mixed? What you do is you put this hand into a pure 4-bet, but you pure call all these suited hands because we want to play post flop with the suited hands. With the offsuit blocker type hands like ace queen off, now we turn that into a pure 4-bet. So let's go back to the cutoff response. So we see here, we are going to be 4-betting more, but also calling a bit more with the suited hands. Even a hand like ace 5 suited wants to mostly call and not mostly 4-bet like a solver. Let's keep going and continue on in the notes. All right, guys, one more spot I want to go over. The spot is the button exploit versus a small blind 3-bet. Now, again, in the 500 NL reg pool, they are over 3-betting. This may seem counterintuitive, but this is one of the most common spots, and they do 3-bet a bit more than theory. They're 3-betting 15.1% overall, and GTO is 14.2%. We have to look at the button MDA response. Now, this response is very, very crazy, but we're going to go over it. Now, what is the button response versus a small blind 3-bet? Well, if you node lock population tendencies, you start 4-betting range. Okay, now this is kind of crazy, but we're going to go over what 2-card confidence says for the reasons why you do this. Let's go over this. And we see population is folding more to 4-bets than theory, and they're also jamming less than theory. In GTO, 5.8% of hands call versus a 4-bet, but population is only calling 5%, and GTO jams 3.5%, and population jams 3.1%. I just want to check GTO Wizard as well, because the wording in the course can be confusing for some people. So, what 2-card confidence means when he says 3% jam, what he means is this. If you look in GTO Wizard, it'll say 26.4%. So what does this 3% even mean? What you have to do is look at the combos, right? We know there's 1,326 starting combos in poker. Now, what you do is you take this 49.78 and you have to divide it by 1,326. And this is where that 3% number comes from. Now, he's saying that in his sims, 3.5% was the number. This is 3.7. And population is only jamming 3%. So, as an exploit, we now 4-bet much more because they jam less and fold more. All right, guys, this is the end of part 1 of the 2-card confidence pre-flop exploits course review. I will see you guys tomorrow for part 2, so stay tuned. If you enjoy this type of content, please give me a like, please give me a subscribe. New video every single day, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.